This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
Almost 120 years to change the land acquisition laws that allow government to acquire privately owned land. The fact that a colonial law instituted by the British in 1894 took a century and more to change shows how treacherous this matter is. Taking away land from a farmer destroys his source of livelihood forever. And that's precisely why getting his consent and rehabilitating him was the primary concern when new laws came into effect in January 2014. But there's now a harsh reality or realization that the 2013 Land Act is simply too stringent and has halted development on many fronts. Just this big fact, since January this year, not a single tract of land has been acquired for any infrastructure project, and projects worth several trillion rupees are stuck across the country because of land. No wonder the present government, in a hurry to get the economy moving, has declared its intention to amend these stringent laws. Social activists are crying foul, and industry is simply waiting and hoping for the changes to come about. Who's right, who's not? Is there a better middle path to land acquisition? Joining me today to answer that question, Dr. Didar Singh, Secretary General FICCI. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Also with me here in the studio, Muhammad Ali Khan, former officer on special duty, OSD, Ministry of Rural Development, who was a key part of formulating the Act today as it is, and also is currently practicing law in the field of land acquisition. We also have with us Brijesh Kalappa, National Speaker, All India Congress Committee, Nisha Singh, Councillor, Municipal Corporation, Gurgaon, and we've also recorded the views of NC Saxena, former member, National Advisory Council. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me here. I think Mr. Arun Jaitley on Sunday has already said that the government will amend the stringent land acquisition law even without the support of the opposition. Now, that's a very, very big statement coming from the Finance Minister. Dr. Didar Singh, what's your first reaction? Is it one of relief saying, yes, finally somebody's realized and it has to be changed?
Let me tell you first of all that when we speak as FICCI or I speak as Secretary General, we speak on what we felt as industry felt was going to be the reaction when you brought in this land law. This is exactly what we predicted, that if you put this kind of law in, you will see all development come to a halt, and the nation is only watching that. And the second thing that we had said, that this will really create a problem in the state governments, and you now see a large number of state governments who are saying that they're not able to go ahead in their own developmental activities because the entire matter has come to a grinding halt. So yes, we believe that a consensus is now emerging, both in state governments as well as in the central government, where a relook on the Land Acquisition Act has to be done. We are not saying that the land acquisition should not look at compensation. Of course, farmers and those people from whom land is acquired must be compensated adequately. We've only been talking about the fact of the delays, the tremendous amount of time frame in which this whole thing was to be done. And secondly, we've been saying that for private purchase, please, this is not purchase being done by government. Please do not interfere with it and let private purchase happen between two individuals, as is a right in our constitution and in our country.
All right. So FICCI, of course, has always, or the industry body has always had its concerns around the new act. Another gentleman who had big concerns is, of course, NC Saxena. Mr. Saxena, you had pronounced the new Land Acquisition Act as both anti-farmer and as anti-industry. So are you feeling validated, I won't say vindicated, but validated that the government is compelled to actually take a relook at the new laws?
Yes, I am sure. I think it's a very good decision because the present law will take so much time to get land that it neither benefits farmers nor it benefits industry. It only benefits the civil society who would be roaming here and there are too many committees which have been set up Monitoring Committee, Social Assessment Committee, R&R Committee, Chief Secretary's Committee. So therefore, if land cannot be acquired in time, it doesn't benefit the farmers because they will not get compensation in time, and they will also be waiting all the time, cannot invest in that land, and they become losers.
Okay, fair enough. So let's just go over what are the kind of amendments which would come about. First of all, the biggest one which the earlier land law did not have was to get a consent from the farmers or from the landowner. The government could just go and acquire the land, decide on a compensation. There was no consent required. Now, for public-private participation, you need the consent of 70% of landowners if any parcel of land has to be acquired. This, the government says, should be diluted, or at least the industry is saying the government hasn't yet come about and said it, but we are hearing that this could happen. Brijesh Kalapa, this is a act which was, or this law became an act only with not just the Congress but BJP also voting for it. So diluting the consent clause, which was the biggest demand of the landowners and the farmers, is that valid?
You see, Manisha, I think it's fairly clear now that over a period of time, the BJP has shown its true intent, which is to support industry and support industry in not in a fashion in which industry is helped, in a legal fashion, in the sense that they are taken into confidence, and some ameliorative measures are taken to help industry. But instances where industry is kept over and above everybody else, and that includes the Aam Aadmi. And the Indian National Congress stands for the Aam Aadmi, as you well know. When this act actually came through, you must take a step back and look at what happened in the Supreme Court. And in the Greater Noida acquisition case, there were large tracts of land which were taken over and kept for years and years, and no fair compensation was paid. And then that the beneficial use was not established in a clear, transparent fashion. And people were only taking away somebody's source of livelihood and were keeping it for years and years, waiting for the land rates to rise, and then to make windfall gains out of those lands. Mm-hmm. So it was with this point of view that the entire Land Acquisition Act, which is today fashioned, was actually conceptualized. So the point is that the deal has to be fair to everybody concerned.
Okay.
Right? That industry has to benefit, that likewise the landowner has to benefit, and everybody else who is using the land has to benefit. So this was a holistic...
Brijesh Kalapa, the very big fact that since January 1st, when this act became a law, not a single parcel of land has been acquired for any development work. Does that not speak of the fact that probably it's too stringent and it needs to be diluted a little bit? Would you agree with that at least?
You see, Manisha, why land acquisitions haven't taken place over the last 6 months or so, I cannot really fathom the reason. But I can very well tell you that in the past, land acquisitions have taken place for far beyond the necessary needs. Mm-hmm. Right? So I don't know if there's some land bank which is still existent, right, which is going to serve the purpose of the government or the PPPs, right? But for whatever reason that is. And okay. that really has to, it's not merely sufficient to say that land acquisitions haven't taken place. Why they haven't taken place? For what reason? Is the new Land Act coming in the way? This must be analyzed and must be scientifically proven. Before that, one can't just think of doing away with an entire, act which has been otherwise beautifully conceptualized.
Okay, the act is not going to be done with. It's going to get diluted. So I come back. Mohammad Ali Khan, you were part of that act when it happened at every stage. Tell us, what is your view? Was there, in that goal of achieving social equity and ensuring that nobody who loses their land ever is at the receiving end, the act become too stringent and it's dropped or stopped development on its track?
I'll come to that, Manisha, but before that, I want to address two things. One, that Mr. Saxena, who's like a mentor to us and who was very important to us through the very beginning of the process, raised, and the other thing that Brijesh sir said as well. The first issue is, Naresh sir said that there's absolutely no one who benefits from this act. With all due respect, that's not true. Since January, hundreds of thousands of people have had their land released under Section 24(2) of this Act. Section 24(2) was a retrospective clause which basically said that if you are the victim of a long-standing acquisition and your land, either the possession has not been taken or compensation has not been paid to you, then your land stands returned to you. Hundreds of thousands of people have availed the benefit of this clause. 6 judgments of the Supreme Court, many more from the High Court, and even today morning itself, in various forums, land was released. So it is incorrect to say the land hasn't benefited anyone. If the measure of a law is that you determine how many people have benefited by it, then I think the law has been a major success by that yardstick. Second, when you said why has no acquisition taken place, I can answer that to some extent. Remember that the law came into force on the 1st of January 2014. Now, thereafter, we were suddenly faced with the prospect of elections, and then the Model Code of Conduct came into operation. That took us till essentially June, when the government was sworn in and took charge. Thereafter, the government, and this is my personal inference, signaled their intent to make the law easier. This was something that the bureaucrats had long been waiting for, because if there was anyone who was not a fan of this law, it's the bureaucrats who had to implement it. If you ask the people who are on the ground, the farmers, etc., and the people who avail the benefit of this act, you'll get a very different picture. But if you speak to the bureaucrats, they'll say, of course, it makes life difficult. Yes, it does. But the law wasn't made for you. It was made for the person whose land is being taken away.
All right.
So my question is, show me examples of where social impact assessments have been initiated and they haven't been completed because of an inherent fault in the process itself. If you can show me that, then I will believe that the process is flawed. But until then, it's purely speculative.
All right, so you talked about Mr. Saxena, so let's hear his views. He actually is saying that, let's begin with the first bit that we are hearing, diluting the consent clause. Right now, 70% for PPP projects, if that's diluted, is that going to be harmful to the farmers, or do you think that should be done? That's his response.
No, I think consent clause should be retained, because for public projects which are to be done by government, already the consent clause is not there. That is, if land is required for schools, hospitals, defense purposes, then no consent is taken. But if it is for a profitable project, where quality of where the value of land is going to increase several times, it is very important that the farmers also benefit, and therefore the compensation should be decided in consultation with farmers. You can reduce the number to 50%, that I don't mind, but to do away with consent altogether will mean that we are back to the original law, which means land can be acquired without the consent. It amounts to coercion.
Okay.
So that is not a good decision.
Mohammad Ali Khan, do you agree? 50%, at least we can dilute to that without actually it becoming adversary to the farmers who will be losing land, and also giving some leverage to industry to acquire land very quickly to move ahead?
Well, I agree with what Brijesh sir said earlier. I mean, this was a bill that was passed with the consensus of all parties present. 70% and 80% were numbers that were agreed upon by consensus.
So you're saying no dilution, there shouldn't be. Nisha Singh, come in here. What do you think? I mean, are you in favor of at least the act and the laws being relooked at, and then of course the biggest thing, consent clause can get diluted a little bit?
Yes, I'm definitely in the favor of this new law, because as we know, we had a very unfair situation on the ground where a 100-year law was being enacted, and there were profits which were being accrued by a very small set of people, and so the people whose land was being taken away were of course losing out, but regular residents who were living in these lands or using this land were also losing out. So it took us 100 years to change this law, and we now have something which is trying to bring that balance, which is trying to get that unfairness out of the system. And within 9 months we are saying that, well, it's not good enough. So as somebody just pointed out, where is the assessment? Who has assessed whether the law currently is working or not? So in my view, it's a good, very progressive step.
So let me go to Dr. Didar Singh. Dr. Didar Singh, the panelists here are saying, who's assessed? It's only been 9 months, out of which we lost 5 months for elections, and therefore really it was a country with no deals and no work happening. Have we given the new Land Act enough time to be proven otherwise?
You can leave it for 2 years and you'll still have no acquisition. But let's step back a little bit. What are we talking about? When we talk of acquisition, there are 3 types of acquisition. Acquisition number 1 is a private acquisition between 2 individuals. Second type of acquisition where land acquisition occurs, that is when government acquires land. That is already provided for in the Act.
Absolutely.
The third type is public-private partnerships. And the public-private partnerships, remember, are also for developmental projects. They are actually government-public projects which are given to the private sector to set up in a boot context or annuity or whatever it is. So that's also a developmental context that they're being taken in. Now, when you look at compensation is determined, it is certainly influenced and determined by whatever price government is paying. So if there's a higher price being paid by government, obviously it will impact all acquisition in the entire area. So what we from industry have been saying, certainly if compensation is to be paid at a certain level, certainly government should go ahead and pay it. And if public-private partnership, PPP projects have to pay it, they will pay it. What we have been saying is that leave the private sector acquisitions out of it.
All
now
right.
this, and you can have threshold limits that, every project over a certain 100 crores or whatever else you want to do. But those alone should be in it and the rest
Dr.
should be
Didar
left
Singh,
out
let
of
me
it.
hear, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that none of the clauses should apply for private acquisition of land. You're saying 80% consent is not required, social impact assessment is not required, and the threshold has to be
that's
100
exactly what I'm
acres of
saying.
land?
Yes.
All right. Okay, that's a big demand from the industry. Brijesh
Threshold. You
Kalapa,
can decide or threshold, but we are saying that don't, yeah.
all right. So, don't have any consent limits, don't have any social impact assessment. Brijesh Kalapa, come in here. If it's a transaction between 2 private parties, it's not that the farmers have not been smartened. At least in large parts of the country, they do know their rights. Do you think that if it's a transaction between 2 private parties, none of these laws should apply? They should only apply in public-private participation, PPP model?
No, if I'm not mistaken, I think the present law is that there is no impediment if it's a private.
Yes, you're absolutely
It's
right.
a private acquisition. If my reading of the law is
100% correct.
there is no impediment at
No,
all
it's
in
R&R, it's
so far
R&R
as
compulsory.
private acquisition.
State threshold.
All right, so R&R. All right, so the provision, Dr. Didar Singh, what you're indicating is the R&R provision, which you're saying that, all right, you
If
come in here.
I may, sir, that's conditional. In fact, as Brijesh sir
And the
rightly
social
pointed out,
impact and the SIA studies.
no, there is no SIA required at all for private purchase. Private purchase is protected by the doctrine of privity of contract. If you wish to buy land, purchase land, not acquire, then you're free to do so. The only attachment, the only caveat to that is that states will set a particular floor after the purchase of which you will have to satisfy the R&R requirements. States can set that at 1,000 acres, they can set that at 10,000 acres. In fact, to my knowledge, only 2 states, Karnataka and I think Punjab, have set the floor right now. So that's entirely up to the states, but there's no requirement of SIA, there's no requirement of consent. Once you've agreed, it's fine. R&R only kicks in once the state decides. There's nothing to do with the central
But
government
the
or
state
the
has
law.
to decide. That's
Correct.
also a provision. The state cannot do away with the R&R clause, isn't it? And there is some stringency there that the land will not be handed over or till the R&R provisions are all completely met. Isn't that a little stringent then?
No, that clause particularly applies only in the case where you have to see there are 4 schedules to the law, right? So what happens is first you carry out your SIA. Immediately after the SIA, the report goes to an expert group. The expert group evaluates it, etc., and gives their findings. Once they give you the green light that yes, go ahead, and these are very, very rigorous processes. They're not something that is bound by discretion. In fact, there's no discretion under the law, right? So once these people have arrived at that conclusion, only then does the acquisition process start. This is all pre-acquisition. Once the acquisition process itself starts, there in that case, you cannot cannot forcibly take away someone's land unless you've paid him the compensation or unless you have fulfilled the R&R requirements. But that's in the case of acquisition where there's an element of force. In the case of private purchase, there's no element of force. You and I are buying land from each other, so there's no question of it being contingent on me first satisfying the R&R requirements. It just says once you cross a particular threshold, it will be 10,000 acres, then you satisfy the R&R requirements, and that basically means you take care of the people who've been displaced. That's it.
All right, let's hear Mr. Saxena's views on both. Let's start with the limit the social impact assessment only to certain large projects. I mean, the project size can be defined, but his views on limiting or diluting the current law and act to limiting social impact to large projects.
Yes, that's a good decision because up to 100 hectares, I think the district magistrate or collector should be empowered to take a decision. He should call a meeting of the farmers and the requiring body, settle on a certain figure and acquire land. What is the point of wasting time in social assessment when land is required for, say, a linear project or just 1 or 2 hectares of land where no displacement is going to take place? And therefore, we need to really confine social assessment to large projects.
All right, so he's saying that limit it only to large projects, but then, you know, there's not just a lot of lots of views against diluting the Land Acquisition Act here in the studio. Even social activists are up in arms. They say that the government cannot decide to build cities by destroying villages and snatching away people's livelihoods. So we'll come back, we'll keep discussing on this issue. This winter session of Parliament, what can the government do? Will the changes be enough to balance out the need for social equity with growth when it comes to land acquisition?